Right, so the sight of British holidaymakers fleeing Rhodes and Corfu amidst scorching mid-40s temperatures, literally catching those islands on fire, some leaving in small boats, no less. Well, I couldn't help but note the twisted irony that Brits were fleeing in small boats, and this is being called a humanitarian disaster by parts of our rancid right-wing press. But people turning up on our shores, having fled goodness knows what themselves in small boats, get called a disaster for turning up here. And that is anything but humanitarian, and it's by the very same news sources. Well, it's a good job locals on those islands don't treat us the same way we happen to treat others, but similarities to the so-called migrant crisis aside, what is going on in the Med right now should be a massive slap in the face to all of our politicians here that are rowing back on green policy, and that shouldn't be the way they're going about politics these days. The climate crisis is unfolding before our eyes, and it is affecting us here too. What we're seeing on those Greek islands right now is obvious and dramatic and makes for compelling news reporting. But the bigger issue should be our politicians deciding that addressing this, the biggest political issue of our time, isn't actually politically expedient to them and isn't much of a vote winner, and therefore they should ignore it. The by-elections that saw ULEZ get blamed by Labour as a glaring example of green policy getting the blame was quite high-profile news here. It's not news really that we need to change our vehicles, move away from fossil fuel combustion engines, but the policy itself in how it is being rolled out, the support for people to adapt not being there, the funding not there from central government as Sadiq Khan moves ahead regardless, has poisoned the idea, poisoned the policy in the minds of many to the point that it has got the blame for Labour's loss. The policy is the right one. How politicians have handled it, though, has been with absolute utter incompetence and foolishness, with Labour's alleged leader, Keir Starmer, swinging from supporting the policy, saying Khan had no choice but to roll it out just 2 weeks ago. Back in 2019, Starmer launched a clear air plan at Camden Council. He said at the time, air quality, climate change is the issue of our time. And as the Extinction Rebellion protest showed us this week, the next generation are not going to forgive us if we don't take action. That clean air plan stated there are good signs ahead. Large-scale policy interventions such as the Mayor of London's ULEZ will help us make a big inroad into air pollution. Now, of course, he's rowed back about on ULEZ completely. It's not a vote winner, apparently, urging Khan to reflect on it, always needing someone else to blame as Starmer does. But he's not in power, at least not yet. It's the Tories we're lumbered with, certainly no better than Starmer, but they too are blaming green policy for losing votes. Sunak is getting clobbered by those putting pressure on him to rethink his net zero goals, to delay and push back policy and preferably bin off others completely, especially in light of the fact the anti-ULEZ campaign they fought in Uxbridge led to them narrowly holding on to the seat. Now many Tories, not least the guy who is now Uxbridge's MP, are saying voters are clearly sick of all this green crap and we need to bin it off to win votes. And what election will you be winning if it's the UK on fire next time then? You can fixate on elections all you like. Nobody wins if we keep torching the planet, though. Sunak is, of course, a weakling, as I've covered in many a video. His position in power is a tenuous one. He's reliant on too many alliances, and he's not so much leading the party as being dictated to by various factions. So what is looking likely to get binned at a time where more green policy should be coming faster with the funding to meet it then? Low traffic neighbourhoods have been springing up around the country to reduce traffic in recent years. These now face getting banned. Get the cars moving again. Landlords will get no longer, they'll get more time to make sure their houses are energy efficient, though of course there will be no let up in the expense in heating costs, the drafty houses getting let, of course. By them. Sunak is resisting calls to push back on the sales of new petrol and diesel cars ending in 2030. And there are also calls to end the green levies on energy bills paid to invest in new green renewable energy sources, with backwards thinking in the extreme. So a little surprise to you, I'm sure, that those little pearls of wisdom came from the minister for the 18th century, the haunted pencil himself, Jacob Rees-Mogg. On top of all of that, Grant Shapps, the energy minister, has said that in the name of energy security, we need to max out the North Sea's oil and gas reserves. Well, that's an entertaining thought from the little spiv, isn't it? What happens to our energy security when they've run out of that then? Because it won't last forever, and the planet is already burning. He says it's compatible with moving away from oil and gas by 2050 because we'll have got it all by then. Well, excuse me, I'll repeat it again. The world is on fire now in 2023. How much more of a cinder is it going to be by 2050 if you keep going in the same way? Aside from being weak on the issue, Sunak, we also know, isn't interested in environmental issues. It was only the other week that Zach Goldsmith quit on him as Minister for the International Environment, where he called Sunak out directly. He said, "Prime Minister, having been able to get so much done previously, I have struggled even to hold the line in recent months. The problem is not that government is hostile to the environment, it is that you, our Prime Minister, are simply uninterested. That signal, or lack of it, has trickled down through Whitehall and caused a kind of paralysis. I will never understand how, with all the knowledge we now have about our fundamental reliance on the natural world and the speed with which we are destroying it, anyone can be uninterested. But even if this existential challenge leaves you personally unmoved, there is a world of people out there who care very much." Sunak isn't just weak, he just doesn't care. And actually he thinks Goldsmith may well be wrong about so many people being out there who care, because apparently it's not a vote winner anymore. Let's take COP26 as well. Sunak wasn't going to go until Boris Johnson decided he was going, and then Sunak went to avoid the embarrassment, not because of any green policy credentials or any interest in the topic at all. I can come back to Starmer too on some of this. He has made commitments to move over to more renewable energy, and then has rowed back on issues such as wind farms, and his own commitment to ending oil and gas dependency, now saying we'll still have it in the mix well into the 2050s. So his Labour would be even slower to act on it than the Tories then. Ed Miliband came up with a presentation for him just last week on green policies that would transform our energy dependency and change lives, and Starmer literally said he wasn't interested in hope and change. He wasn't interested in tree huggers. In fact, he hated tree huggers. No wonder Labour's £28 billion commitment to fight the climate crisis has now been scrapped like everything else Starmer ever promises. More interested in creating new jobs for the future as he is at this moment in time. Don't believe it'll last. But what future on a planet becoming more and more difficult to live on by our own design? Of course, we can't save the planet on our own. Not here in the UK. We aren't solely responsible. But by staunchly refusing to do our part and show other countries the way, leading by example, as we could do, we're dooming ourselves. I joined the Green Party because of my social conscience and the policies for economic and social change they carry. The true hope for socialists, as I now believe they are. But you can't ignore the fact they are also the best placed party to take on this greatest of all crises in a manner that is both deliverable and fair on ordinary people. It was the very thing that brought the party into existence over. I don't believe I'm alone in thinking that either. The one party that gained in all three of last week's by-elections was the Green Party. So this argument that cutting the green crap is what voters want just doesn't wash. If ULEZ was such an offensive prospect, why did the Green Party gain vote share in Uxbridge? It's being delivered appallingly and unfairly. The finances are not put in, but most agree reducing car usage and fumes is to the benefit of ourselves and to the planet. I've gone over green energy policies in another recent bid, which I'll link to at the end. I won't repeat them here, but I also didn't cover them all. So do visit the Green Party policy webpage, where every single Green Party policy is publicly available and up for scrutiny at all times, not just before an election in the form of a manifesto. It's a party that doesn't hide what it stands for because they're nailed on. And if doing our part as a country and fighting to stop events such as we've seen in Corfu and in Rhodes getting worse and happening elsewhere, it's going to take a long time to reverse, even beginning now. We have to start somewhere and meaningfully, and that means not electing parties who keep kicking that can down the road. It can't be kicked forever, and eventually it's just going to be too late. Thanks for watching. I hope you appreciated the vid. Please do like, share, and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Meanwhile, here's that aforementioned promised vid, the one where Starmer says he hates tree huggers. Well, the tree huggers have a lot more policy in place to fix the environment than he does. So be careful who you vote for is all I'm saying. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.